What if the biggest lie you tell isn't to other people? What if it's the quiet, polished version of yourself, the one you present when it would be easier just to fake it? Sometimes the journey isn't about finding who you are. It's about proving you are who you say you are, especially when no one's looking. So today, we are talking about a little wooden head who couldn't stop lying because pretending was way easier than becoming. Today, we talk about Pinocchio and what it means to be real. Welcome back, fellow mages, to the Grounded Mage, where we explore how myth and magic exist in everyday life. I just want to apologize in advance if my voice cracks at any point during this episode. I've been dealing with the cough from literal hell for the last 9 days. I'm still trying to kick it, but I'm going to power through this and it's going to go so well. Most people know Pinocchio, a puppet carved by Geppetto and then brought to life by the Blue Fairy. She tells him he can be a real boy on one condition. To become a real boy, he must prove himself to be brave, truthful, and unselfish. Not feel this way, not wish he was that way, but prove he is that way. And that part is important because right away, this story tells us that being real isn't a state. It's a pattern of behavior. We're focusing on the Disney version today because it's the most familiar to the majority of people. So, yes, I am aware that the original book by Carlo Collodi is much harsher. Pinocchio is more reckless, more selfish, and faces darker consequences in that version. But Disney keeps the same core idea. Pinocchio doesn't fail because he doesn't know what's right. He fails because he doesn't do what's right. Okay, I'm going to throw some psychology at you right out of the gate here. Psychologist Donald Winnicott described the difference between true self and false self. According to him, true self is the spontaneous, authentic, and creative core of a person, while the false self is a defensive, compliant persona developed in early life to protect the true self from neglect by caregivers. You can see this split immediately. When Pinocchio first comes to life, he's innocent. But he's not grounded. He wants to be good. He just doesn't have the discipline to back it up. He doesn't know what good is. Take the first major moment. He's sent to school. A clear path, a clear expectation. Quite honestly, Geppetto should have walked him there himself the first time, but maybe that was just an out-of-character thing for that time period. Along the way, Pinocchio meets honest John, a fox who flatters him, tells him he's special, convinces him that school is a waste of time. And Pinocchio? He doesn't resist. Why not? Because the false self thrives on external validation. It's actually maintained by it. There's a concept in psychology called social reward sensitivity. We are wired to respond to approval and praise. That's why sticker systems work so well with school-age children. Pinocchio chooses the identity that feels good, not the one that requires effort. It's not his fault. He's literally brand new to existence. I mean, imagine if you have just come into this world, lucky enough to be able to walk and talk fluently immediately, but you have no knowledge of rules and consequences. Wouldn't you follow the path that made you feel like a king? So, instead of school, Pinocchio ends up performing in the theater for Stromboli. And at first, it works. He gets applause, attention, recognition. He's seen. But here's where it gets dark for the first time. The moment Pinocchio stops being useful, the moment those coins stop being thrown and the crowd goes home, he's locked in a cage. This is the danger of building your identity on performance. In psychology, this connects to contingent self-worth, when your value depends on how others respond to you. Pinocchio becomes valuable only as long as he entertains. And the second he tries to assert his autonomy, he's trapped. All right, we've come to the iconic moment. The blue fairy appears, and Pinocchio lies about why he's in the cage. And then his nose grows. But look more closely at the story, at the position that he's in. Pinocchio doesn't lie because he's evil. He lies because he's trying to protect his image. This ties directly into self-discrepancy theory, which we discussed a little bit in last week's episode. You can check it out when you're done with this one. It's linked in the description down below. Pinocchio knows who he should be, someone who's truthful. He knows who he is, which is someone who's made a bad choice, so he creates a third version, someone who appears innocent. And the tension between those three versions, it shows up physically. His body literally reflects the distortion. Because when your identity is built on pretending, it eventually becomes impossible to hold it together. After being freed, you would think that Pinocchio learned his lesson. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Because insight does not equal change. Next stop, Pleasure Island, where he meets Lampwick, the embodiment of impulsive freedom. No school, no rules, just fun. And oh boy, this is where behavioral psychology hits hard. Avoidance feels good. Research shows that when we avoid responsibility, we get immediate relief, which reinforces that behavior. Think back to when you were a kid and your mom told you, "Get outside, but I best not hear about you going down no creek today." You went there anyway, didn't you? Or when your dad would say, "Hey, you better clean this room before your mom gets home." You sat on your bed playing with the first thing you picked up off the floor, right? You didn't do these things because you were bad. You did them because doing what you liked or doing what was easier felt good. Pinocchio isn't choosing evil. He's just choosing the easier, more appealing option. And that is really dangerous. I want to ask you something before we keep going. If someone followed you around for a week, not listening to what you say, but just watching what you do, would they believe you are who you claim to be? Or would they just see a performance? Because the real question Pinocchio forces us to confront is not, who am I? But, am I living in a way that proves it? So, we get to Pleasure Island and it is chaos in the best way. Kids are smashing clocks, playing games, hanging out in an amusement park, eating junk, doing whatever they want. Honestly, it's still my current dream at 30-something. But then it shifts into the darkest and scariest thing Disney has ever given us, at least in my opinion. Lampwick starts turning into a donkey. Slowly. But here's the most terrifying part. He doesn't even notice it at first. This is habit formation and neuroplasticity in action. Repeated behaviors reshape the brain. You don't just act differently, you become different. Pinocchio begins changing too. Ears, tail, voice. Because when you consistently avoid responsibility, you don't stay neutral. You regress. Now, through all of this, Jiminy Cricket is there, advising, warning, guiding. And he's constantly ignored, which is incredibly realistic when you think about it. Moral psychology shows that knowing the right thing doesn't guarantee action. We override our conscience all the time for immediate gratification, social belonging, emotional impulse. Jiminy isn't weak. He's just easy to silence, much like our own inner voice. But back to this moment of terrifying transformation, thankfully, it is only able to be completed on the island. Jiminy finds Pinocchio just in time. Now, I know I mentioned that Jiminy is very easy to silence. However, in this moment, what saves Pinocchio is his fear of what he has witnessed. And he is willing to do anything to get out of that situation, including listen to Jiminy. They escape just in time to avoid a total disaster for Pinocchio. Actually, the saddest part is that nothing was done for those kids who were left behind. And I just thought I would let you sit with that one. So Pinocchio escapes Pleasure Island, makes it all the way home, just to find out that Geppetto is in danger, swallowed by Monstro the whale. And this is the moment where his personality takes a hard shift. He doesn't give a speech. He doesn't just promise to be better. He acts. He dives into the ocean. He faces fear. He risks everything. And this is where he begins to embody what psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan describe in self-determination theory. Autonomy, he chooses the action. Competence, he faces something difficult. And relatedness, he acts out of love. This is no longer a performance. This is his identity. Pinocchio becomes real after he sacrifices himself. Not when he stops lying, not when he feels bad, but when his actions consistently align with truth and care, even to the point of death. That's the shift from managing an image to embodying a value. So we love the idea that there's a real you hidden out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But that's not what this story teaches us. Even in Collodi's original version, Pinocchio only transforms after repeated failures, consequences, and eventual responsibility. He isn't found. He's formed. Through action, through proof, and through choosing truth when pretending would be much easier. Here are the questions I want to leave you with. Where in your life are you performing instead of being honest? When have you chosen approval over alignment? And what pleasure island are you avoiding responsibility in right now? But here's a harder question for you. If your life is evidence, what is it proving about you? Because being real isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about becoming someone whose actions don't require an explanation because they speak for themselves. Pinocchio's journey isn't magical. It's behavioral. It's psychological. And it's painfully human. If this episode hit something real for you today, don't just sit with it. Do something small today that aligns with who you say you are. Not something big, not something dramatic, just something honest. Because that's how this works. Not in theatrics, just in proof. And if you're ready to go deeper, next week on The Grounded Mage, we explore the story of the Greek goddess Psyche and the idea that the soul is formed, not found. If Pinocchio is about proving you are who you say you are, then Psyche is about becoming someone worth believing in. Until next week, fellow mages, make it make magic.